Hi.
How are you?
President, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are things going in the Bronx?
Oh, it's amazing. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Of course. And thank you for being out there selling books, spreading knowledge. The how long has the shop been open?
We make 2 years this month, at the end of this month.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. It's been an incredible ride. And thank you for being such a grand champion for literature and for indie bookstores.
When I came out with Dreams from My Father in 1994, I guess it is, which may be before you were born, somewhere around there. But back then, it was the independent bookstores. They're the ones who were booking me, and 10 people come to a reading, and but you don't forget that. That's what you do, is you nourish a community, and the people who come to your bookstores, they discover voices they wouldn't hear before, and you can't replace that. So how was it though, managing through the pandemic, when here you are, you just started a business and suddenly this crazy situation happens? How did you guys navigate that?
We were only 10 months old when we had to shut everything down. And I know you've heard the word pivot a million times over the last year and a half, but that's exactly what we had to do. We're also a wine bar, so we were affected by all the retail restrictions plus food and beverage restaurant restrictions. So it was very challenging. But we are so well supported by our community in the South Bronx, and we did not skip a beat. We are in better position now than we were before the pandemic. And I'm just so grateful to my community and, all the support that we've had from our vendors to just everyone that's just rallied behind us. Take us from the South Bronx to the promised lands. I have a question here for you today.
You go ahead.
So your reflections in a promised land, they really shifted my perspective on the necessity to appeal to and collaborate with some of the people who uphold the very systems that you're setting out to change. Right. So my question for you is, what advice would you give to community leaders, organizers, and business owners, maybe an indie bookstore owner, for vetting those opportunities that we believe will drive our missions forward, while also reconciling with our communities who might feel slighted by what we view as diplomacy?
No, look, I think it's a great question. I think it starts, Noëlle, with knowing who you are and what your values are and what you care about. Because the starting point for how you meet the world is, okay, who am I? What do I believe in? What can I compromise? What can I not compromise? And I think, by the way, a good place to get that, in addition to your parents and your friends and your family, is having a knowledge of your history and having a knowledge of the story of how you arrived at where you were, and understanding the context in which you are living, all of which can be found in books. So once you know who you are, then I think, my general attitude, and I write about this in A Promised Land, was to always start off with the premise that I'm going to try to understand other people's perspectives. I'm going to try to give people the benefit of the doubt. If I'm dealing with Mitch McConnell and the Republican Party and they're opposed to everything I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and try to extend my hand and say, how can we work together? And are there things that we can do? And then at a certain point, when you realize if the pushback, it tells you okay, they're not interested in the things I care about, then that's something that you can now learn from and deal with. But I'm always starting off with the premise of let me go ahead and see if I can make a connection with people. Let me see if I can change their mind. And I don't worry about myself being corrupted as long as I know who I am and what's important. And you know, I tell you know, the story of when I was running as president, running for president. Look, you're the first African American, you know, candidate who has actually a chance to win. You know, I'm campaigning in a place like Iowa, where only 3% of the population is African American, and you know, I'm going into little towns where, you know, they might not necessarily assume that I'm somebody who can champion their cause. And if they say something that indicates that they might not be completely woke and enlightened with respect to racial issues, you know, my attitude was, well, you know, let me help them learn. You know, I'm not going to start off by saying, well, you know, it's a Black thing you can't understand, or to just push them away. I'm going to say, no. Look, first of all, you and I, we got some things in common. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about what you believe in. Tell me about your family. Well, here's my family. You know, here's my beliefs. Here are the things I see, if we can create some common ground. And, you know, that's not diplomacy. That's just trying to be human with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when you do that, you'll be disappointed, right? Sometimes it'll turn out, okay, well, actually, this person doesn't see me. They can't connect with me. Sometimes it may turn out that, you know, let's say that, you know, you're trying to navigate your business and you know, you're looking for financing, and somebody who is willing to finance you wants you to engage in business practices that you don't feel good about, that are contrary to your values or aren't good for your community. Well, once you hear that they're doing something that isn't what you're about, then, you know, at that point you can cut them off, you know, but you don't have to start off with the assumption that you can't potentially move them in your direction, move them in a better direction. And so a lot of what A Promised Land is about is me trying to describe, and this is a lot of what the presidency was about, was, you know, how do you operate in a world that, yes, has a history of racism, has a history of exclusion, you know, generally is rigged on behalf of the wealthy and the powerful, you know, is resistant to change in a lot of ways. How can you navigate that system and still hang on to what you believe in and move it in a better direction, understanding that you're not going to do it overnight and you're not going to do it by yourself? And I think that's the last part of it is, you know, when I talk to young people who are organizing, you know, I just tell them, look, you got to be persistent. You know, the civil rights movement, you know, it took the lawyers of the NAACP decades before Brown versus Board of Education finally officially ruled segregation unconstitutional. It then took decades after that to actually implement that legal ruling. And here we are 70 years later, and we're still trying to realize some of the promise of that ruling. And, you know, I think we all have to feel an impatience about that, but we also have to remind ourselves that, you know, against the backdrop of human history, that's a blip, right? That's like a second in time. And so the way change happens is, you know, each of us do our part. We run our leg of the race, and then we hand the baton, and somebody else takes it. And we've got to feel okay about that we're not going to get it all done ourselves.
I received that, and that sparked so many follow-up questions. But since our time here today is limited, I'm going to save them for when you visit us at the Lit.Bar. That's me manifesting.
Well, I'm going to have to stop by, and you know, you'll have to let me sample some of your wines.
What's your wine of choice?
You know, I have to say, Michelle's the wine drinker in my family. You know, if I'm having a drink, I'm usually having a vodka martini. But you know,
you don't sell that anything that strong at the Lit.Bar, but I'll be ready. Mr. President, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you from all of us at the Lit.Bar and in the Bronx.
All right. Tell everybody in the Bronx I said, hey.
You got to say, hey.